Justin, ladies and gentlemen, El Salvador President Nayib Bukele has said that he will not, in a conference and meet up with President Donald Trump, will not release Kilmar Abrego Garcia in orders of the Supreme Court 9-0 ruling. We are effectively in a constitutional crisis, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take a look at the reporting from NBC. The article is titled El Salvador's President Says He Won't Return Mistakenly Deported Man to U.S. And ladies and gentlemen, the article reads, El Salvador President Nayib Bukele told reporters during a meeting with President Donald Trump on Monday that he would not return a man the Justice Department said it had mistakenly deported to his country. How can I return him to the United States? Like if I smuggle him into the United States, Bukele said, sitting beside Trump in the Oval Office when asked if he'd return Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Of course, I'm not going to do it. The question is preposterous. And ladies and gentlemen, note that Donald Trump was ordered by the United States District Court in Maryland to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And he was also ordered by the United States Supreme Court in a 9-0 ruling, like I said at the beginning of this video, to facilitate his return in a 9-0 ruling. Kilmar Abrego Garcia's. Continuing with the article. Asked if he'd be released in his own country, he said, "We're not very fond of releasing terrorists." But here's the thing, Nayib and Trump, his lawyers have said that there's no logical evidence of him being a goddamn terrorist. The terrorists here are you and Donald effing Trump. Continuing with the article. Trump then turned to Bukele and said of the assembled reporters, they'd love to have a criminal released into our country. These are sick people. Trump also said he wants Buell to take in as many criminals as possible. Okay, so then President Buell, if you're so not a fan of terrorists, then you should seriously consider taking in Donald Trump and the rest of his family, especially Elon Musk. Garcia has never been charged criminally in the United States or El Salvador, according to court filings. Justice Department officials have acknowledged that Garcia should not have been sent to El Salvador because of an immigration judge's 2019 order barring him from being sent to there. And the Supreme Court has called his removal illegal and directed the administration to facilitate his return while being respectful of the president's authority. In the Oval Office meeting, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said he didn't understand the confusion over the order, arguing the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court, and no court in the United States has the right to conduct a foreign policy of the United States. That is where, again, you are wrong, Marco Rubio. You are so uneducated and wrong. You don't have the knowledge. Continuing with the article. Attorney General Pam Bondi added, "If they want to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane. That's up for El Salvador. If they want to return him, that's not up to us." Right there to you, Pam Bondi. You are another one of the uneducated clowns and terrorists. The exchange came shortly after top White House advisor Stephen Miller told Fox News on Monday morning that Garcia was sent to the right place. Really? Obviously, he is not aware of an immigration judge's court order. The middle finger there for you, Stephen Miller. Miller said, pushing back on the Justice Department repeated assertion in numerous court filings that Garcia was sent to a notorious Salvadorian Salvadorian prison last month because of an administrative error. This was the right person sent to the right place, Miller said, adding that despite the Supreme Court's criticism of the removal in a ruling last week, the United States acknowledges that Abrego Garcia was subject to a withholding order forbidding his removal to El Salvador, and that the removal to El Salvador was therefore illegal. The High Court found nothing that the Justice Department acknowledged the removal was the result of an administrative error. Miller said that if Buchel were to return Garcia, he would be deported the second time to El Salvador. Senator Chris Van Hollen, a Democrat from MD, told reporters afterward that the Trump administration's position, in my view, is absolutely unsustainable, as is the position of the president of El Salvador. They are clearly just snubbing their nose at the courts, including the Supreme Court. And the courts, in my view, need to exercise their ability to sanction people who ignore court orders, Van Hollen said, adding that he's trying to meet with Buchel about Garcia, who had been a Maryland resident. Senator Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York, meanwhile called Buchel's comments pure nonsense. I very much agree with you, Senator Chuck Schumer. Buchel, your opinion does not matter here, so you need to zip it. You piece of crap. The law is clear. Due process was grossly violated, and the Supreme Court has clearly spoken that the Trump administration must facilitate and effectuate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He should be returned to the United States immediately, Schumer said in a statement. The Trump administration struck a $6 million deal with El Salvador to imprison deportees it says are members of the Venezuelan gang Trendy Aragua and members of the street gang MS-13. The Trump administration has labeled both gangs as foreign terrorist organizations. Yeah, but see, there you go again, Trump. There is no proof, regardless of what the hell you say, you racist POS, that Kilmar Abrego is a member of MS-13 or TDA. Continuing with the article. The federal judge presiding over the case seeking Garcia's return to the United States, Paula Zenas, noted that he has no criminal record in the United States or in El Salvador, and said the gang membership charge came from a singular, unsubstantiated allegation. The evidence against Abrego Garcia consisted of nothing more than his Chicago Bulls hat and hoodie, and a vague, uncorroborated allegation from a confidential information claiming he belonged to MS-13's Western clique in New York, a place he has never lived, the judge found. In his interview with Fox News, Miller said Garcia's membership in MS-13 meant that the barring him from being returned to the United States, that the order barring him from being returned to El Salvador was null and void. A position the United States government has not taken in court. Speaking in the Oval Office meeting with Buell and Trump, Miller misrepresented Zenas' order by saying the judge had tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is a bold-faced bullcrap BS lie. That's not at all what the order is saying. Continuing with the next paragraph. Zenas, in a ruling backed by the Supreme Court, directed the administration to facilitate Garcia's return, which Miller said he takes to mean that the U.S. would allow him to return if El Salvador decided to send him back. That is not at all what the order says. Miller, I suggest you shut your mouth. No Trump administration officials asked Buell to return Garcia during the part of the meeting that reporters Excuse me. That reporters were allowed to observe. Bondi, Rubio, and Miller all said such a decision could be made only by El Salvador. Again, Bondi, Rubio, and Miller, shut your mouths. You guys are uneducated, illegal, moronic doofuses. Continuing with the article. Lawyers for Garcia said the U.S. has more control over the prisoners in the jail than it claims, noting the Trump administration is paying $6 million to keep them there. Miller also pushed back Monday on the Justice Department's earlier characterization that Garcia's removal was a mistake. He told Fox News that the acknowledgement of the error came from the DOJ, a DOJ lawyer who has since been relieved of duty. A saboteur, Democrat. The attorney, however, was not the only one to make that characterization. U.S. Solicitor General D. John Sawyer referred to the removal as an administrative error in a filing to the Supreme Court last week. Following the Supreme Court's ruling, Zenas issued an order that the U.S. government take all available steps to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia to the United States as soon as possible, and to comply with the High Court's order to share what it can concerning the steps it has taken and the prospect of further steps. The administration initially didn't provide her with any of that information, but in a filing Saturday, it said Garcia is currently being held in the terrorism confinement center in El Salvador. He is alive and secure in that facility. A hearing is scheduled for Tuesday. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for today's legal breaking reporting. If you did enjoy this legal breaking reporting, please like, comment, share, subscribe. If you want to make sure that you never miss a brand new legal breaking reporting, please hit the bell icon that is right next to the subscribe button down below here on the right hand side. You guys can also do so by following me on my social medias that I will have linked down below. Thirdly, ladies and gentlemen, please help me reach and achieve the goal of 150 plus subscribers. We are almost there. We're like 2 or 3 subscribers away. The reason why I'm saying 150 plus subscribers is because right after we reach and achieve the goal of 150 subscribers, we have more subscribers to reach and achieve after we reach and achieve the goal of 150 subscribers. Until my next legal breaking reporting, ladies and gentlemen, please stay safe, please stay positive, and know that justice will prevail despite Donald Trump and his illegal administration defying court orders and unconstitutional executive orders and behaviors.